Welcome back to my two-part video series on how to set up your Helix from scratch. In part 2, we're going to build off of everything that happened in part 1, so if you haven't seen that already, make sure you go ahead and check that out. This part 2 is going to help you round out your tone with any additional color effects and then dial in the Helix for a performance or a studio session or whatever you need to use it for. You might be wondering why I haven't assigned any buttons yet, and that's because first I just like to go through and get a sound I like and then decide how I want my stomp set up. And then one more layer above that, I'll then go and decide how I want my snapshots set up. It's much easier to build your tones without doing all the stomps, and then it's much easier to set up your snapshots once the stomps are set up. So that's the reason I do it that way. It just saves time, it's more efficient. Next would come any color or modulation effects that you'd want. So for the sake of this, I'm gonna add a chorus and a tremolo. I'm gonna go ahead and go down to the next row. If you've tried to put anything on the next row yet, assuming you have a next row, and you haven't gotten any sound, you haven't heard that, that's probably because it's not routed down there. So you need to go to the end of your first row at the little output, and instead of going to the multi-quarter-inch XLR digital USB 1 and 2, you're gonna want to set this, go ahead and click, and select path 2A. So now it's gonna route down, you see the little down arrow, and come over to here. So if you go to the input of this second row, you'll see none, but it has the arrow right there saying, hey, it's coming in. And then when you play, you'll see that the sound's coming in, going there, and leaving. So now you have both rows of DSP tied in. If you, for whatever reason, wanted to do two different rigs, like I used this for bass a few weeks ago, and I had my top row be the bass and the lower row be my synth bass, and I had different inputs, then you would set this input to something else and then just have the two outputs going, and you can set the volumes yourself. But for big electric tones, you need all the DSP you can get, so that's why I routed it down to the bottom. So just go to your first block here, go into modulation, and this is where you get to decide, if you haven't already, if you're gonna be mono or stereo. So for my modulation today, I'm gonna be mono, so I'll go ahead and go there. I always start with the 70s chorus for my chorus because this is the original like chorus ensemble CE1. It's the kind of chorus most similar to what's in the Roland Jazz chorus amp. So that classic like really lush 70s. And what I like most about this is it can do either chorus or vibrato, but if you have it on chorus, you can ignore like all the controls. So if you look over here on HX Edit, you have a chorus rate, and then you have a vibrato rate, vibrato depth, and a mode. So mode is gonna switch between chorus and vibrato. If you're not using vibrato, you can ignore the vibrato controls. So you literally are just looking at chorus rate, mix, level, and headroom. Level is simply, does the pedal turn up or turn down when you turn it on? By default, it's +1 dB just to balance things out, so I usually leave it there. Headroom is actually the preamp within the pedal. So if you pull that down, it'll start to break up. You'll actually get like that analog breakup kind of sound. Or if you want it ultra clean, you can add more headroom and it won't do that at all. This is where potentially having your cab at the end of your chain is helpful, because if you add in that headroom, that analog breakup, and then it's not hitting a cab, you're gonna more easily be able to hear it. So if your cab's in there, it's gonna roll off kind of those high frequencies, and it would be more realistically what it would be like if you took a CE1 chorus and ran it into your amp. Just things to think about. So I'm gonna go ahead and move my IR. I'm gonna copy it, paste it down here on the lower row. And same thing with my EQ. I'm gonna copy it, paste it down here. So now you'll hear that chorus is a lot more kind of rolled off, mellow sounding. That could be that like analog sound that your ear is missing when you try to go digital. If you're like, it took me years to go digital because I didn't like the sound, but there's some things you have to set up to more accurately emulate like a pedal going into an amp, into a speaker. So I'm gonna pull down the rate a little bit because I'm a big fan of slower, washy choruses. And then if you want more or less chorus sound, you can adjust the mix there. chorus. Next is a tremolo. And depending on your line of thought, you can put this in multiple places. If you're an old Fender amp kind of guy, then you're gonna want the tremolo at the very end of your signal, right before the cab. And this is gonna be that good kind of vintagey tremolo that ducks out your reverb. Or if you want a more modern sound, put it first before your delays and reverbs, so you get that tremolo sound and then all the unfiltered wetness and tails of your delay and reverb. So that's up to you if you're using tremolo. I'm gonna go ahead and just grab the regular tremolo. This one's my absolute favorite. I like the sine wave. And then just pull the intensity down until you're at a point you like. And if you wanna push the level up here, I usually find that's helpful because the tremolo is always turning your guitar down, so I just push a little bit back in there. So that's sounding really good. That's getting really close to my actual Princeton amp. The other thing that my Princeton amp has that we haven't accounted for yet is spring reverb. So there's a few options for spring reverb, and I like to put one in there and leave it on all the time, just a little bit, as it would if I was using a Fender amp. You know, you always have it on like 1 or 2, and it's just back there, just good sauce for all the time. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab a mono. You can try hot springs if you want. Hot springs is very like in your face, drippy. So you could always pull the mix down on that and just get just a little bit. So it's worth noting that a lot of these time-based effects like delays and reverbs, they have a dedicated low cut and high cut for that unit, for that sound. And so I use these to, if it feels too fake or I hear too much harshness in the reverb, that's what the high cut's for, and you just turn it down until it sits under your guitar. Because the idea with all these effects is it's enhancing your guitar, not drowning it out. So I'm gonna pull the mix down just a little bit more. And that's a good subtle amount of reverb, and it just adds that life into the guitar that you otherwise wouldn't have. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and add a delay, and I'm gonna keep everything in mono for the simplicity of this video, because I'm sure a lot of people just run in mono. My favorite, personally, is the transistor tape. And depending on if you want this to sync with your tap tempo or not, you can click this right here, and it'll either show milliseconds or an interval. So the interval is what's synced to your tap tempo here. So if I click it, then it's the speed. And this is how you can get your dotted eighth, like the edge kind of. So for the sake of time, I'll go ahead and leave it there. But the only other things I would adjust probably are the feedback and the mix. And then depending on the color or character that the delay you've picked has, you can make adjustments there. So like this tape has the wow and flutter, which is kind of some warble on the end of the tape. If you want more of a slappy sounding delay, that good slapback, I'll bypass that and add another one here and go ahead and press and just go pick something. My favorite for slapback are either the Bucket Brigade or the Elephant Man, because they're kind of rolled off. So just speed this time up to about 100 milliseconds is where I like it for slap. And you can adjust it to taste after that. And then maybe pull the feedback down a little bit. Split the difference. And then roll the mix down. And now you've got that good like. So that's how you quickly dial in a slap there. I'll go ahead and bypass that. So I'm running out of room on this bottom row. So I'm gonna copy the chorus and the tremolo up. So just go ahead and copy, paste, delete the old one, copy, paste, delete the old one. Now I try to balance kind of my load on each DSP level as I go. Next, I'm going to add kind of a more in-your-face reverb, like for when I want those big washy kind of feels. So I'm gonna go down to reverb, mono, There's a lot to mess with here. They all have their own unique character. I would recommend maybe starting on Ganymede or Ganymede, Medi, I don't know. It's that good, like, modulated. And with whatever effect you're looking for, always try to find like the tone or the low and the high controls, because that's going to help you balance it in with the rest of your sound. If you see trails, usually this is only on delay and reverbs. That is, if you turn off the pedal while it's making sound, does the sound continue to carry? So right now it's off. So if I bypass this, you just lose the sound. But if you go turn trails on, turn it off, you still have your trails. It carries on. So I'd strongly recommend trails unless you just want that kind of hard cut thing for maybe a specific part of the song where the band cuts out or something. That's where you would set that up. You may notice I've accidentally put this before my delays, so I want to move that to after my delays. So if you just press action, it kind of lifts up the block you have selected, and then you can move it around. So I'm just going to move it before my spring, because I think of the spring reverb kind of as part of the amp, so it's at the end. And so at this point, I have a few blocks left over still, plenty of room for things. And so if you're missing something, this is where I would go and add that in. If you want a phaser or more delays or another overdrive, whatever you want, make sure you have space left over for it after you've covered all your bases, essentially. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and move on to setting up the stomps. So if you press this button here, you'll toggle between preset view and stomp view. And this is going to be different if you're on the HX Stomp or something, but for the big floor type pedals, you have this effect here. So I go over to the stomp side, and if you don't like how this is configured, you can change it in the settings. So, you know, if you don't want to see 8 snapshots on here, you'd rather see 8 presets or like 4 presets and 4 stomps or whatever you want. That's all configurable in settings. So if you hit this 3-line thing right here and go to global settings and go to Footswitches, this is where you can adjust. So the second one right here, preset mode, that's this one, preset mode, what we're on now. And you have all these options for stomp and snap. So you have stomp on the top row, snap on the bottom, snap and stomp. So that's reversed, snap and preset, whatever you want. You can even do 8 presets if you want to see like 8 presets, but I like 8 snapshots, and then I set these 2 over here, and you can get there by the up-down switches to presets. So you can do banks, which are whole sets of presets, or snapshots if you want to go up and down through your snapshots. But I like to have it on presets, which I usually set up per song. So then, you know, as I'm playing, I have my snapshots here, all of them. I can go over to Stomp to make small tweaks, and then when I'm ready for the next song or previous song, I just up down there. That's how I like to set it up. On the Stomp side, you do have one option, but it's not as many. You can either do 10 switches where all 10 of these here are assignable stomps, or you can do 8 switches where you have your preset up and down and then 8 stomps. So I prefer 10 switches because I want all the buttons, but you do you there. So to quickly set up these stomps, you can either go to the pedal that you want, select it, and then just lightly tap on the foot switch you want. And it's going to ask you if you want to merge foot switch, and just click on where it says OK. And now you'll see right here it says Ds1, like DS1 vintage, and then you can toggle it on and off. If you want to do it from Helix Edit, just click on the pedal you want, and you can right click and do bypass assign and click the foot switch you want. So I just did that, and now it dropped in. I prefer to do it from HX Edit. It's just so much quicker. So these mods I'm going to keep on the top row. So maybe the chorus we'll put on 4 right here, and the tremolo we'll put on 5. And then we've got a couple delays. So I'll start them at 7 and 8. And then we could do the reverbs on 9 and 10. Now it kind of roughly mirrors how we have the blocks set up there. And that's how I like to do it. But if you want to set it up, maybe how your pedal board was set up, you can do them in any order. The order of your stomps has nothing to do with the order of your effects. So it's important to order the effects in the way that they're going to sound the best. and then order your stomps in the way that makes the most sense, either for you to comprehend and remember, or, you know, say you're performing and you access like the overdrives way more than the other stuff, you can move your overdrives wherever you want. The other thing you can do here is label them. So we have 2 delays. It's kind of confusing because they're weird names and they're the same color. So let's go ahead and label them, kind of customize them a little. So the transistor tape, that's our regular delay. So I'm going to click and go over to bypass assign / controller and change this to just say tape delay instead. That might be a little better. And then on the other one, I'm going to call this slap, maybe Slapback. And then you can change the color too. So if you don't want it to be green, maybe the Slapback will do turquoise. And now you can see here we have different labels. This says tape delay. This one says it didn't change. Slapback. You got to hit enter to confirm it. Now we have tape delay and slapback, so it's a lot easier to understand like what's going on there. Ganymede, I'm going to just change to reverb because that makes more sense. Reverb, and I'll call this one spring. Now it's a lot easier to understand. If you want to change your overdrives to like be the actual pedal instead of the weird thing, that's great. If you need to know what these are, like you don't know what DS1 is or the Minotaur is, I'll put a link in the description where you can go. It's this like HX helper website, and it tells you what all the line 6 names are and how they relate to like actual gear. So if you like a specific pedal, you might be able to find it on there and cross-reference it and figure out what it's called in Helix. If you want to set up your volume pedal, get your expression 2 working for volume, you can either tap it onto something else that already has a volume, but I prefer just to use the volume pedal function. I like to put it after my dynamics, but before my overdrives, because I like to roll it down a little bit to clean it up. So go all the way down to volume and pan, mono, and we're going to do volume pedal. And so they have 2 options here. By default, it automatically assigns to expression 2. So you'll see when I move here, it's going from 0 to 100%. That's great. Swell it in here. They also have a curve, so linear is just going to be completely straight, and logarithmic is going to have a different feel. So, and just whatever you prefer the feel of, like get your foot on it and figure it out. It's great. So I'm going to use the logarithmic. Next is setting up snapshots, and I'll only do a couple to keep it simple, but I wanted to show you how to do it because I feel like snapshots are often overlooked and they're so powerful. So I'm going to turn everything off, and I'm going to go over to snapshot mode and make sure I'm on snapshot 1. Before I go any further, I'm going to go ahead and save because we've put a lot of effort into this. So I'm going to hit save. Right now it's new preset, and it's actually a lot easier to do this from the laptop. So I'm going to go here, click the little down arrow, and just call it like new tone. So now make sure you're on snapshot 1, and I almost always like snapshot 1 to just be clean, like straight up regular amp tone, because you never know when you just want nothing on, right? So snapshot 1, I go over here to rename it, and I'm gonna call this one clean. And now you'll see our first snapshot right here now says clean. In the settings, you can have it automatically save your snapshots, or you need to hit save when you make a change. And I think by default, it automatically saves it, so that's where I like it. So now go over to your next snapshot, and it might turn everything on by default. And then you just need to figure out what you want it to be. So let's say this second snapshot, I want it to be kind of like a rockabilly kind of thing. So I'm gonna go ahead and rename this. We'll just call it Grit Slap. And then just pop over to your stomp mode and turn off what you don't want. So for a Grit Slap, I definitely want Slapback. I don't want tape delay. I don't want the reverb. No color effects. Maybe no overdrive. Maybe a Minotaur. See what it sounds like with a Minotaur in there. Great. I love that. And my general mental state for this is I put kind of more regular sounds on the bottom, and then my top row is more color stuff. Let's move on to snapshot 3, and we'll just call this OD delay. Go go over to snaps. I don't want reverb. We can have spring for this, no slap. We will do, just turn on what you want. If at any point you want to make changes, the default does not save parameters like this mix knob. It does not save to the snapshot. So if you change it here, it'll change it for all your snapshots, which is what I want the majority of the time. Go ahead and save to update things. Maybe snapshot 4, we can do, I usually have snapshot 4 be big drive or something like that, like whatever my loudest setting is. So I'll go turn off the color, turn off the reverbs, and just have all the gain. No chorus. From there, maybe do a color one up top. So this will be like a chorus vibe kind of thing. So I'll go ahead and rename this one. And then if you go back to your snapshot mode, now you have a bunch of really cool tones ready to go really quickly. So back to clean, back to gritty slap. And then you got your big overdrive delay if you want to do some like U2 stuff. And then if you want to go to your super big drive for whatever. And then you've got your chorus verb up there. And feel free to customize these however you want. Again, it's all subjective to what you like. I'm just using this as an example to show you how it can be configured and set up in a really efficient way. So go ahead and save that to update it. And now what I usually like to do is say this is like song 1 of my set list or wherever I'm performing. Then you can save this to your next one. So go right here to destination and just click it up 1 to 21. And say new tone 2, we're gonna start with the slap, like right off the bat, and we wanna start with the volume pedal down. Go ahead and save that. And then now's when you use your preset up and down. So down goes to the previous song. So here's new tone 1. Make sure you save your volume pedal down unless you want sound right away. Save that. And then go to your next song, new tone 2, and then you start on the grit slap. And you can even have different snapshots per song. So like, if this particular song, you need a lot of weird chorus stuff and not a lot of overdrive, you can change them all however you want to set it up. That is a big, super detailed rundown on how to start making your own patches. Thanks so much for watching part 2 of this video series. I hope it was helpful. If you haven't already, make sure you check out part 1 because it lays a great foundation for everything I covered in this video. If you learned anything new in this video, please let me know down in the comments. I always love hearing about what people learn from my videos. Also, if you have any suggestions for future videos, you can leave those in the comments as well. Thanks again for watching, and make sure you like and subscribe.